Welcome, everyone, to the Media Row podcast. I'm Justin Miller. Happy to have you guys along here on a Monday to kickstart our week, a brand new week here on the show. Of course, a thank you to our sponsors, Kelly's Little Nipper and Stevens Automotive and Sales, for making this possible for us to be able to do this week after week, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays on a normal week. But you're stuck with me at least Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays for the most part of June. And then July, with July 4th, we'll probably have that off, but we'll keep you updated as we move forward. But this week, a normal week, we're back to having more people on to interview, get to know better. And today, someone that I actually don't know personally as well as I have the other people we've brought on the show, but someone who I respect greatly just with her effort and work ethic that she puts into. And that is the sports director over at Channel 5, Reina Garcia, hopping on the show today to talk about her career. She's hopping on the show directly off air to come on and talk about her career from the Principal Charity Classic, because, of course, as you know, we pre-record these shows, so it is actually Sunday, and she is hopping off air to come on the show from Principal Charity Classic to talk about everything from covering Caitlin Clark, her favorite moments, and more about her career and get to know her a little better. So a huge thank you to Reina Garcia. She'll be on here very shortly, but before we get to that interview, need to give a shout out to Kelly's Little Nipper at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Historic Kelly's Little Nipper, I should say. Go to their Facebook pages. I love how Jeff runs his socials, and he's able to just really make people intrigued with their place. And he had videos of the live shows that they had over this weekend that looked great and sounded amazing. And they have them weekly of live great music. That's a reason you should go check them out. But also great food, great drinks. You can see on the videos how hard everyone works, from the kitchen to the bartenders to everyone, to make that place a wonderful, historic, must go venue in Des Moines. But great food, great drink, great atmosphere, and wonderful people over there at the historic Kelly's Little Nipper, 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. When you go to Kelly's Little Nipper, make sure to tell them that Media Row sent you. Reina, it is really cool that you're able to jump on the show directly after covering and being on TV. So that was pretty cool. I appreciate that. But you just got done being over at Principal Park for the Cooper Dejean Celebrity Softball Charity Classic, right?
Yeah, no, it was super fun. So it was right after the iCubs game. So Cooper Dejean got to throw out the first pitch, and they did a meet and greet with fans. And then right after the game, they had a home run derby, and then the celebrity softball game. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of star power there for sure.
Have you covered something like that before?
No, I don't think I've been somewhere with so many like famous athletes like all in one place. You have events where, maybe there's a really big name here or there, but not so many in one spot. I was asking some people like, when's the last time there's been a celebrity softball game in Des Moines? And a lot of people were like, I think this is probably one of the only ones, at least in recent memory. So it was pretty cool to be there for it.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived in Des Moines my whole life. Couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you the time there was a celebrity tournament. But did you get to speak with Cooper and talk about just his crazy career path after the Super Bowl?
Yeah. No, we got to talk to him before the game, and he just talked about, being able to, bring some of his current teammates, former teammates, specifically, with the Eagles to his home state to kind of show them, the place that he loves, and got to bring some of the Iowa traditions. So they did the wave before the game. So that was awesome seeing everyone at Principal Park do that. And he just talked about, how cool it is to be back here to see so many Eagles fans. I can't tell you, I don't think I've seen that much green in Des Moines for anything. So many Eagles jerseys. So he just talked really about all the support that he's received throughout his career, specifically from people here in Iowa. And he was excited that, his teammates, made time in their schedules to travel out here to be a part of it.
What was the biggest surprise of the tournament? Like you going in to cover this, you probably have in your head what you want to film, what you want to talk about. Was there anything that caught you off guard where you're like, "Oh, gotta bring this up now"?
Yeah, no, it was fun getting just to get I mean specifically with Cooper, I just think, we don't really hear him talk a lot. He's just not a guy will like talk a ton, and when he does talk, he doesn't give you too much. And so but you could kind of see it in his eyes. He was really excited for the game. Just to do something of the scale that really hasn't been done. So that was kind of cool to see him, get a little excited, and it was fun to talk to some of his former teammates. Darius Slay, we got to talk to. We asked him if this was his first time in Iowa. He said, "Yeah." He said he was looking forward to the corn. So I don't know if he'll get his corn or where he'll go to for that specifically, but that was kind of fun to hear people who aren't from here, kind of what their perception of what Iowa is.
If the TV channels had to go up against each other in a softball tournament, how do you think Channel 5 would do?
We're a young group, so I feel pretty confident just in the youth. We're pretty spry, pretty athletic. I know Jake, he is a tennis player, former tennis player, pretty well-rounded athlete. I'm a former volleyball player. So I feel like not too far removed from that. And we got a lot of youth on it, not just from the sports department, but I feel like we would do good just off the youth alone.
So the next Des Moines big celebrity tournament we have will be the TV channels going up against each other, I think.
Yeah, no, that I'd be down. That'd be fun. I used to do, I think a couple years ago, I played in like a rec softball league at my last station. And so that was pretty fun. Not
I
gonna lie.
I did a slow pitch, just like for one weekend. A buddy was like, "Hey, you want to come do this? This would be fun," and I sucked. So,
It's
it
harder than
was,
people think.
yeah.
You would think it'd be easy, but and that's funny. One thing we saw today is like a lot of these high caliber athletes, they struggled a little bit. In the home run derby, we saw a lot of swing and a miss. So from that people you wouldn't expect. So I was kind of like, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They're just warming up, but it was kind of surprising.
So one, I've wanted to get you on the show since March because I think it was maybe it's either Jeff from Channel 8 or it might have even been Jake. But when I was in Wichita with the Drake men's basketball team, you were doing something that you gained so much respect out of me with your travels because you covered the Drake first round game in Wichita, then you went to Oklahoma to cover the Iowa women's first round, then you went back to Wichita to cover the Drake second round game, right? Like,
Yeah.
uh, did you get 1 hour of sleep? How did you do all of that?
I kind of used to not getting a lot of sleep, so that was kind of, didn't bother me as much as you would think. But yeah, well, I kind of knew going in it was going to be a busy weekend if all things went as I thought it would. So I was kind of already mentally prepared, but it's kind of just one of those things where you're just running on pure adrenaline. And you're just like go go go, and it's like the NCAA tournament is so exciting, so you're honestly not even thinking about how tired you are until you actually hit your bed and you're like, "Oh man, that was a doozy of a day." Like I really can't wait to just shut my eyes and then even if it's for like 5 hours, like it's all good. We're going to do it all again tomorrow, but I mean, it's March. Like, you're kind of expecting that. We'll sleep when it's all done. But it was just a lot of fun. I just feel really lucky to cover those types of tournaments. It's not often you get that opportunity, let alone to do it for multiple teams. So I feel like just trying to approach it with the mindset of, like I'm very lucky to do this and just running off of that adrenaline, trying not to think too much about, oh, I got to get up in the morning and travel 2.5 hours. And listening to lots of podcasts that helped on my drives back and forth. No, but it was really fun. It was an exhausting thing to do, but like I said, I mean, when you're used to ripping and roaring, it's kind of par for the course.
Is that one of your favorite parts of the job you have? Is the travel, is the hustle and bustle?
Yeah, for sure. Just because, my first two markets, I didn't really do that. In my first market in Topeka, my hometown, I started out as a news MMJ. So I wasn't even covering sports at that time. And then when I got to Joplin, Missouri, we covered a lot of Division II stuff. And there wasn't really much travel involved in that, at least to the scale that I've done here in Des Moines. And so I just, wasn't something I was used to, but ever since I've been here, I've traveled way more than I anticipated. I want to say it was my second week on the job here in Des Moines. It was actually covering the Iowa State men at the Sweet 16 in Chicago. So I was kind of just hit the ground running from the jump. And I feel like it's been nonstop ever since. But man, that really is my favorite part because you just get to cover these big events in some places I've never been before. And so that's cool. And you get to do it too alongside people who you've been covering these teams with all year long. It's fun because you get people around that you can enjoy it with. And so that's what makes the road trips fun, I think.
Has there been a place that either surprised you or has just been your favorite so far?
Seattle was really cool. I will say that one because I had never been to Seattle before, and so that was really fun getting to just be up there. And Climate Pledge Arena is one of the best arenas I've been in. It's so cool. So that was my one of my favorites. I'll say surprisingly, so I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Cleveland was actually pretty cool. As much as
Really?
it
I wouldn't
pains
think
me that
Cleveland would be up there.
yeah, I don't know. It was just I just enjoyed the scenery. And it was just I don't know, and just having like the ballpark so close to like where my hotel was, had some time to just get out and walk around, and so just being able to do that, I was like, oh, not too bad. As much as it pains me to say, as a Steelers fan.
So how did all of this get started for you? Because it's been interesting talking to people, like spoke with Jake a few weeks ago, and it feels like people either have this as a childhood dream, this is what they want to do, or they kind of fall into it. There doesn't
Mhm.
seem to be that in between. For you, was it you always knew you wanted to be in front of the camera covering sports, or did it come later in life?
I think it started to come together for me when I was in college. Like growing up, I always loved doing creative things. Like I always loved writing, and just things like that. And then once I got into college, I knew I wanted to do something in media. I just didn't know what exactly. So my freshman, sophomore year took some like digital editing classes and some photography, some video editing courses, and I was like, wow, I really love the process of taking video and putting it all together and like executing this vision that you had. And so I feel like that in a combination with my passion for like writing and storytelling kind of led me to broadcast journalism. And then just having been an athlete growing up and playing in college, I was like, okay, I love sports. So I feel like sports journalism is something that I really would like to do. So I was lucky in that I kind of figured it out pretty early in college, and then it just progressed each step of the way, and then kind of jumped right into it in my first job out of college.
What was there a moment in college that hit you as like, okay, I'm on the right track. This is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I would say probably like my junior. So I transferred to K-State in the middle of my junior year. And so I started to get involved with our student-run journalism program and like our some of our broadcast shows that we did. And it just felt right. Like it just took to everything so naturally. And I just really loved it. Like I didn't mind having to spend like hours of my free time going around campus and getting stories. Like it didn't feel like a chore to me. It's something I really look forward to doing. And then watching my progress, like where I started out, and then to see, how I was able to get better, I was like, okay, I think I'm onto something here. And so I was happy that I knew that and was able to secure a job, I think March. So a couple months before graduation, I was like, okay, this is good. I just know this doesn't happen a lot. So I was like, I feel like I'm on the right track with this.
Is have you gone back and because you're bringing up, looking at the progress you were making, have you gone back? What was a thing that maybe you struggled with that now you feel like is one of your stronger suits?
I laugh because I think about this often. Like when I go back and look at my older stories, I had a really bad tendency of talking really softly, like I'm whispering and I don't want anyone to hear me. Like I guess it's just because I wasn't super confident in my voice. And so when I listen to like stories I do now or how I anchor, it's so much different from even my first job. I would just always be so quiet and like wasn't, speaking like with my chest. And so it's kind of funny to watch those back. And I'm like, speak up, like no one can hear you. Why are you whispering? So it's kind of funny to see that.
Did you have a mentor that stuck out to you, whether in college as a professor or maybe within that first job that helped you kind of build up that confidence?
Yeah, I would say my professor, Drew Smith at K State, when I first got there, we had talked about because I transferred in the middle of my junior year, I felt a little behind because, in order to get involved with like the sports media side of things through K State athletics, it's kind of one of those things you have to start when you're like a freshman. So there weren't like a ton of spots available to get into that. And so I was kind of discouraged, like, how am I supposed to build a reel and get a job in sports media if I don't have any experience? And he gave me some great advice and said, "How have you considered starting in news and learning how to be a news reporter? And then once develop, your skills there, then try to transition to sports." And I was like, yeah, I guess I could do that. And that turned out to be the best advice because I started out as a news MMJ, my hometown of Topeka. And I did that for 2 years. And that was really the best, thing I could have done because I learned all of the, foundational elements of being a good reporter, how to turn things on tight deadlines, how to make pivots when your stories aren't panning out. And, that learning how to function under that constant hustle and bustle, a constant grind, and how to power through and still, make good content. And so by the time I did that for a couple of years, throughout that time, my the sports department there, they gave me great opportunities to cover high school football, and then that kind of turned into Big 12 tournaments, some Chiefs games, and so I was able to build enough there to finally get a full-time sports job. And I don't think that would have been possible if I hadn't started in news. So that always sticks with me, is I feel like I wouldn't be here if I hadn't gotten that advice from him.
The pivoting is always fascinating to me of journalists and people in news of just how you guys are able to change things like on a snap of a fingers. Because
Yeah.
I think there was a documentary I watched on like NFL films. It was with the Atlanta Falcons when they blew the 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. And it was with all the journalists and TV guys being like, we had our stories done and in one quarter we had to scrap everything. Have you had a moment, maybe not to that level, but a moment where you feel like, all right, I'm done for the day, and then something changes and you have to be on your feet?
Yeah, I feel like, especially in sports, like the timing thing is always a really hard balancing act because, if it's a big sporting event, we want to be live in the show as soon as we can, but say it goes into overtime or extra innings, like that's something is always a chance of that happening, but you just hope that it doesn't, so that way everything lines up perfectly time-wise so you can get to your hit, you can have a result to say, rather than the game being progress. And so it really keeps you on your toes. It happens so many times to where you just honestly expect it. You go in thinking, this is not going to go how I plan. So I'm already going to have a plan A, B, C, and D ready to go just in case, because I just know how these things go. And so I feel like going in with that mindset kind of helps. I mean, it's still stressful either way, but at least going in expecting it, you're kind of just like, when it happens, you're like, okay, all right, let's turn to the backup plans here.
So how did you get to Iowa?
Yeah, so before here I was in Joplin, Missouri for about 2 years. And I was at almost like my contract was almost up, so I was looking for that next step. And then I came across the job here and I interviewed for it. And to my surprise, I got it. Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly what jump I would be able to make because Joplin's still a pretty small market, and that was my first sports job. So even though I had about 4 years of experience, I only had about two doing sports full time, and so I was kind of surprised. But man, it's been so great being here. I didn't know what to expect coming here. It's honestly exceeded all of my expectations, of what I thought possible. And so, but I love it here. I love covering sports here. I love living here. And so I'm definitely glad I made the move here.
Is there a favorite season? I know we talked about how crazy March is. Is that the best season for you, or do you enjoy football the most, or do you even have a favorite?
It's tough. I love fall because I'm a big football fan. So I think football is probably my favorite sport to cover. But I also love March because I think I'm deep down, I just love the chaos. I think it's something I
Yeah.
thrive off of. So I feel like maybe that's why I do love that. And the stakes are so high. It's fun to cover sports with everything. There's so much pressure and there's all eyes on it. And when you're in the eye of the storm, that's been really cool to experience the last few years. And football is not like that to the same extent, but I just love the sport. So I would say football slightly over March.
You've been able to cover some really cool events, and probably the biggest story out of the state since I can remember has been Caitlin Clark. And just what do you remember from covering her at Iowa?
Yeah, it's funny because like my first real introduction to her was I had only been here for maybe a few months. So this was in the summer. I think I want to say it was June. I think it was like the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And I wanted to do a story because I had, learned that, girls women's basketball is a big deal here. And so I wanted to do something about the evolution of kind of where it started and where it is now. And so after doing some research, I'm like, oh, I feel like I should interview some of the people from the Iowa women's basketball team. So I wasn't really sure what my chances were, but I was like, oh, let me see if I can interview Lisa Bluter, Jan Jensen and Caitlin Clark. And
The big
so,
three.
yeah. And so this was the summer going into Caitlin's junior year. So the blow up it hadn't happened yet. It was coming that season. So I got to have a sit down with her, Lisa, and Jan, just talking about the evolution of women's sports, where it started. I remember Lisa and Jan telling me their stories about when they were playing and how they couldn't even get their books paid for, and just like, man, how tough it was for them. And to now, where they were at that point, or getting nationally televised games. And it's just funny to think back to that because little did any of us know it was about to explode. And so I just think back to that being my first introduction really to Caitlin and talking to her too, because I mean, she had kind of talked about it like, if it wasn't for people like Jan and Lisa, she wouldn't be able to reach the heights that she was reaching. And it's just so funny to think that, oh, just wait, it's gonna be even bigger than you ever imagined. And so that's been crazy to kind of watch it from the starting point to the peak. And I feel like we're still there. Like it's only growing, which
Yeah.
is insane.
And then too, like, so you get to talk to Caitlin Clark and you see her growth and like you said, the explosion that happened that season. Is there a story though, maybe that is one of the proudest that you've been to cover, or one that you'll always look back to if people ask you, for advice of like, this was my best story for X, Y, and Z reasons?
I think it was just like I remember so that following season, her junior, when they made it to the national championship game. I think what was cool for me was like, seeing the relationships we were able to form with the players, like when they see people who had covered them throughout the season, follow them to their highest point. You could tell there was kind of like a mutual respect, and I think, and then a comfortability level, which I think was really cool too. I think it was cool for them to see a lot of female journalists. Like at the time, I was with Camille Gear, who was here with WQAD, and then Chelsea with KCRG. We were all kind of covering the event together, really. And so I think it was just cool I think you could tell with them, they were like, wow, this is cool. Like, look at all these female journalists covering the explosion of women's sports. And I think we all kind of recognized like something special was happening. And so I think it was just cool to be a part of that coverage and to continue to see it through to even higher heights the next season. And so I think that's just been a once in a lifetime opportunity to be able to see something that we, weren't sure would happen with women's sports. It was it was on the rise, but we weren't quite sure when it would really hit that point of like mainstream nationwide, little boys, little girls, men, women, everyone watching. And to see that happen and kind of be in the eye of the storm of it was really, really cool.
I still remember it was the craziest thing. It was last fall. My dad and I, because we're Seahawks fans. And so,
Mhm.
of course, being in Iowa, there's never a Seahawks game on TV. So you'd have to go to places that had Sunday ticket. I remember last fall we went to a bar and every TV was Indiana Fever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's NFL Sunday. This is crazy. And it was so cool to see. like grown adults wearing Caitlin Clark Indiana Fever jerseys. It was so cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny because I had a similar experience when I was, remember I was home. I think it might have been sometime a couple seasons. I think during Caitlin's senior year, I think they were playing like, I don't know, Illinois or something, just like regular season game. And it was majority of the TVs were turned to that game in Topeka, Kansas. Where, mind you, I'm sure K-State or KU was playing, but the TVs were all on Iowa women's basketball. And that moment, I was like, "Mom, they got the Iowa game on in here." Like I thought I would have to be checking my phone to, keep up on the game, but I could just watch it here. And so I think that was a moment where I'm like, man, this thing has some reach. And so that was really cool to see.
Is there now an event though that you haven't been able to cover that you want to? What's the dream event for Reina Garcia?
Oh, the Super Bowl. Man,
Yeah, Super Bowl. Okay.
I would love to cover the Super Bowl. I mean, it's crazy because it's like being so close. Like I started when I was in Topeka, that was kind of like the beginning of the Chiefs dynasty run. And so, but by the time I had left, I was in Joplin. But we didn't really get to travel for it because we just weren't close enough to Kansas City. So I've always been like close to it, but haven't been able to like travel for it. So one day I'm hoping I can cover the Super Bowl. That would be super awesome. Or with the World Cup coming soon, I know Kansas City is one of the sites. So I'm hoping maybe I'll be down there to do some coverage. Fingers crossed. I'm going to speak it into existence. That would be really cool too. I love the World Cup.
I'm starting to notice a trend here. You go to Kansas and you're able to, see the Kansas City Chiefs start to go on their rise. You come to Iowa, Caitlin Clark starts to go on their rise. Are you just gonna put that on your resume of like, hey, whatever sports teams you guys cover, I'm gonna bring good luck? Because when did you come to Des Moines? What year?
I got here, I think it was March of 2022.
Okay, so I'm a Drake fan. Drake Bulldogs hadn't been that successful, and
Mhm.
then they go on a 3-year tear of winning three straight conference
Yeah,
titles. So I think you just put it on your resume at this point.
that's true. It's crazy to look at like how like just all of the programs between Iowa State, Drake. I mean, there's been so much success across all of those schools, and I feel like I just caught like lightning in a bottle. Like I just came at the perfect time. I mean, even when you think of like Iowa State football this past season, like I was able to cover the Pop Tarts Bowl and watch that crazy comeback against Miami. And I'm like, how do I get so lucky that I've been able to cover all of these like crazy things that I never would have thought possible. Um, and just to watch, especially when it catches the national attention. Like not only
Yeah.
people here in the state of Iowa, it's like when people, even like with Cooper Dejean, having covered him in Iowa, a lot of us knew what he was capable of, and when we watched it play out with the Eagles, I'm like, yeah, he's that dude. Like, yeah, this isn't just a one off. He's that guy, and so that was kind of today was kind of like a full circle moment of that to be like, wow, I remember when I covered him in Iowa. Now he's a big name in the NFL.
As a TV reporter, is there a little bit of you that is like, come on, I was here from the start? When you start seeing the rooms get bigger, like especially with Caitlin Clark or,
Yeah,
Iowa State last year, they got more national attention, of course, too. So is there
yeah,
a little bit of you where you're like, come on, like us local news should get front row. Every national news has to sit in the back because we've been here from the start.
yeah. I mean, it was definitely like overwhelming a little bit Caitlin's senior year because when I think of how it was compared to her junior year, like there were crowds, but like we never really had to like box anyone out for position. Like we weren't like in crazy huge crowds where you can't even get your mic in there. And you could talk to her one on one, like there just wouldn't be that many people. And then her senior year, I mean, it was probably like close to 20, 15, 20 reporters at a single scrum to the point where, and it was to the point where like they would have to say, okay, you guys have to like get back and give her some room. And like, I'm just looking at people like, guys, you gotta chill out. Like you're scaring her, because it was just a huge mob. And I'm just trying to think like if I was in her position, if I seen all these people with these lights and cameras in my face and they keep just closing me in, I would like, how does she not have like a panic attack? Um, so I was always impressed with her on that, just to see how she always handled all of the, bright lights and big crowds with such grace and just professionalism. When she was always so graceful with her time. She never seemed annoyed about having to answer questions, even if it was a question she had just got asked, like the other previous question ago. That happens a lot,
Yeah.
and so I was in awe of her because I was like, I'm overwhelmed for you. Like, this is insane to see this. Every media session was like that during the tournament. I mean, it was insane. So I just remember being so impressed. I'm like, how do you do this, girl? Because I want to leave and I'm not even being interviewed. I'm interviewing you. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I think moments like that where we're kind of like, guys, don't ruin this for us. You gotta know how to act. You gotta calm down. But she has a
Well,
star power. I don't know.
it has been incredible. I mean, there's been good and bad tossed at her, and she's handled it all really, really well, and that's been impressive. But
Yeah.
what's next for you coming up here? Any big stories you want to promote that'll be on Channel 5?
I just think we're really, now that kind of all the chaotic stuff has passed us, I say that even though there's really no off season for us because we got state soccer going on next week. But I'm excited for once we get through that period through the summer, we really have time to hone in on telling feature stories, long form stories. That's what I love to do. I feel like I'm a reporter at heart. That's why I just love being out, getting stories, talking to people. And so I kind of like when we have a little bit of downtime so we can do some of that. And I'm because it's at the root of what we do. I think that's what local sports is all about, is telling those stories and highlighting our local athletes. And so I'm excited for that. But I mean, I love the busyness too. I think, like I said, deep down, I thrive off of it. Maybe I'm psychotic or something, but I love the chaos,
I
I guess.
I mean, when I heard your travels in March, I still remember being like, "Holy cow, kudos to you!" Because I mean, I love basketball, but the drive alone, I'd be like, maybe I'll just stay in one place." But so that's pretty cool. Is there when you're not covering sports, what do you do to relax? What's your free time? Any hobbies you have? Do you go to concerts in the summer? What do you do for free time?
Yeah, well, I like to spend time with my dog if I'm not working. Always walking my dog, hanging out. She's a beagle, so she has a ton of energy. So she keeps me busy. That I like to visit home a lot. Topeka is only about 3.5 hours from Des Moines, so I like to go home a couple times a month at least because you just never know where this job is going to take you. And I've had so many coworkers who are, halfway across the country from their family. They only get to go home like maybe during Christmas or one other holiday. So I really try to take advantage of the fact that I'm within driving distance to home, and I really try and visit there as much as I can because this business is so unpredictable. You just never know where you're going to go next. It's kind of wherever the next opportunity takes you. So I would say visiting home, hanging out with my dog, and then obviously when it's football season on Sundays, you cannot move me from the couch. I'm just there from noon to whenever Sunday night football ends.
Till that 60 minutes the ticking starts and you realize your weekend's over.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, I'm gonna sit right here on this couch and I'm not moving because I'm just watching football all day. So yeah, those are typically what I like to do when I'm not here at the office.
A huge thank you to Reina Garcia for hopping on the Media Row podcast today. I mean, I took up more time than I probably should have with her busy schedule, but still, it was so cool of her to be able to go straight from covering the Cooper Dejean, celebrity charity softball game at Principal Park to, I think she was still in Principal Park, hopping on to do this show. To find time like that really means a lot. So won't be the last time you hear from Reina Garcia, that's for sure, on the Media Row podcast. So huge thank you to her. And before we wrap up today's show, though, I need to give a shout out to our guys at 5's Automotive and Sales at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. Big three things you need to know about going over to 5's. Number one, you're going to be dealing with loyal and good people. They've been here for 35 years, family owned and operated in Iowa, and those are who you want to be involved with. People that are loyal and are not going to bounce around. They are here and to make sure that you are safe on the road. Number two, they communicate so well. That's a big thing for me, just with any life aspect. Like, I love people that communicate well. 5's Automotive, very much so. They let me know when my car will be done, what to expect in the future that needs to be looked at. And then number three, and one of the biggest reasons, and it kind of goes along with number two, there's no BS. They give it to you straight. They don't upcharge you for anything. They're not going to fix anything unless you let them know that you want it fixed. They're not going to go, hey, we saw this. Here's $1,000 that we did without you approving it. They are people that are going to make sure that you are safe and ready on the road and make sure that you are fully aware of what is happening with your car. Stevens Automotive, 35 years of family owned and operated at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. When you go to Stevens Automotive in sales, make sure to let them know that Media Row sent you. Again, huge thank you to Reina Garcia. We will be back on Wednesday for a brand new edition of the Media Row podcast with me, Justin Miller.